Welcome, dear listener, and thank you for choosing to spend this quiet time with us. We are so glad you are here to experience the Loom Weaving Starlight Threads, a gentle story crafted to soothe your mind and guide you towards peaceful rest. If you find comfort and tranquility in our tales and wish to explore more soothing soundscapes, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Before we journey into the heart of the Whispering Grove, we will begin with a short breathing guidance designed to help you settle in and release the cares of the day. Should you prefer to drift directly into the story, please feel free to use the chapter timestamps found in the description below to navigate to the beginning of Anya's tale. Please, find a position that feels deeply comfortable for you now. Allow your body to feel fully supported, perhaps noticing the gentle pressure where you rest against your bed or chair. Feel the comforting weight of your blankets, a soft anchor in the quiet room. This moment is yours, a quiet space carved out of time, just for you to unwind and invite stillness. Let the thought of the Whispering Grove begin to fill your awareness. Imagine the soft silvery twilight, the scent of damp earth and moss, the feeling of profound peace found deep within an ancient wood where starlight is spun into gentle dreams. Let us take a slow, calming breath together now. Inhale gently through your nose, feeling the cool air entering, filling your lungs effortlessly without strain. And then exhale slowly through your mouth, perhaps with a soft sigh, releasing the breath and any lingering tension with it. Feel your shoulders soften, your jaw unclench. With each easy inhale, imagine drawing in the quiet serenity of the grove. With each soft exhale, picture the day's worries drifting away like fallen leaves on a gentle breeze. Allow the image of the great loom humming softly, its starlight threads shimmering, to bring a sense of quiet wonder to your mind. Feel a sense of warmth spreading through your chest, a gentle ease. If thoughts arise, simply acknowledge them without judgment, like watching clouds drift lazily across a calm sky. Gently guide your attention back to the sensation of your breath or to the sound of my voice. There is nothing else you need to do right now but relax and listen. Feel the steady, peaceful rhythm beginning to settle within you, like the gentle thump-clack of the ancient loom. Notice the comforting weight of your body, sinking ever so slightly deeper into relaxation, feeling safe and held. Let the quiet magic begin to work. Allow yourself to feel connected to the deep tranquility of the grove, even before our story truly begins. As we prepare to join Anya on her journey, let the gentle atmosphere envelop you, bringing a profound sense of peace, comfort, and readiness for rest. Now let us step quietly into the woods, following the faint silvery light, and begin our journey to the Whispering Grove of Ethelgard, where the Loom Weaving Starlight Threads awaits. Chapter 1. The Whispering Grove. The forest floor was a soft carpet of fallen leaves and pine needles, muffling the sound of Anya's footsteps as she walked deeper amongst the ancient trees. She wasn't entirely sure what drew her onward, only that a faint silvery luminescence seemed to beckon from between the shadowed trunks ahead, a light far softer and gentler than the dappled sunlight filtering through the high canopy. It pulsed with a quiet invitation, a silent promise of sanctuary that resonated somewhere deep within her, easing a restlessness she often carried like a heavy cloak. The air here was cooler, carrying the rich, loamy scent of damp earth, moss, and the sweet decay of fallen wood, the perfume of ages undisturbed. She paused, resting a hand on the rough, comforting bark of an enormous oak, its surface a complex tapestry of deep furrows and clinging moss. Looking up, she could barely see the sky, only a dense lacework of branches and leaves, creating a world beneath the world, hushed and self-contained. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, brimming with the unheard life of the forest, the slow growth of roots, the patient unfurling of ferns, the quiet respiration of the trees themselves. It pressed gently against her ears, a calming presence, far removed from the clamor of the villages she had left behind. The silvery light ahead grew subtly stronger, not brighter, but more present. It wasn't harsh or demanding, more like moonlight diffused through mist. As she moved towards it, the trees seemed to part, opening into a space unlike any she had ever seen. It was a circular grove, perhaps 50 paces across, bathed in a perpetual, gentle twilight. The light seemed to emanate not from a single source, but from the very air itself, bathing everything in a soft, ethereal glow. Ancient trees, even larger and more venerable than those in the surrounding forest, formed the grove's perimeter, their lower branches heavy with thick cloaks of luminous, silver-green moss. Stepping fully into the clearing felt like crossing an unseen threshold. The air instantly felt calmer, the silence deeper, yet somehow warmer, more welcoming. The ground beneath her feet was not soil or leaf litter, but an unbroken carpet of the same thick, springy moss that adorned the trees. It yielded softly under her weight, silencing her footsteps completely, giving the impression of walking on condensed cloud. The sensation was incredibly soothing, grounding her while simultaneously making her feel lighter, as if the moss absorbed not just sound, but weariness too. She stood for a long moment, simply breathing, taking in the profound peace of the place. The air carried the scent of damp earth and moss, but mingled now with a faint, exquisitely sweet fragrance, like night-blooming flowers, though none were immediately visible. High overhead, the dense canopy formed a living roof, filtering the unseen sky into the consistent, silvery dimness that filled the grove. There were no sharp edges here, no harsh sounds, only gentle curves, soft textures, and a quietude that seemed to seep into her very bones. Anya noticed small details then, the way droplets of dew clung like tiny jewels to the strands of moss, catching the silvery light, the intricate patterns of bark on the ancient trees, like the faces of wise, sleeping giants, the subtle variations in the shades of green and silver all around her. Strange, pale fungi pushed up through the moss in smooth, sculpted shapes, adding to the otherworldly beauty. Everything felt slow, patient, and deeply rooted. Somewhere, faint and distant, she thought she heard the soft chime of water, perhaps a hidden stream or a small cascade, but the sound was muted, absorbed by the moss and the quiet air, becoming part of the grove's gentle background symphony. It wasn't a place of stark silence, but of hushed sounds, softened and blended into a tranquil whole. The rustle of leaves seemed slower here, the air currents gentler. A feeling of having arrived settled over Anya, a sense of rightness she hadn't experienced before. The restlessness that had propelled her forward seemed to dissolve, replaced by a quiet curiosity and a profound sense of calm. She felt no urge to rush, no need to understand everything at once, only a desire to sit, to be still, and to let the peace of the whispering grove wash over her. She sank down onto the cushiony moss, feeling it mold softly around her, a welcoming embrace from the ancient heart of the woods. The gentle weight of her body felt supported, held, and she released a slow breath, feeling tension ease from her shoulders, a quiet invitation to rest. Chapter 2. The Guardian and the Loom. Anya sat nestled in the soft moss for a time she couldn't measure, simply absorbing the deep tranquility of the whispering grove. The silvery twilight remained constant, unchanging, creating a sense of timelessness. As her eyes adjusted further, she began to perceive subtle movements within the apparent stillness, the slow sway of a moss-draped branch, the almost imperceptible unfurling of a fern frond near the base of a tree. It was a place of quiet, patient life, moving at a rhythm far slower than the world outside. Then, from the deeper shadows beneath one of the largest, most ancient trees, a figure slowly emerged. It wasn't startling. The emergence felt as natural and unhurried as the growth of the moss itself. The figure seemed woven from the very essence of the grove. Its form suggested limbs and a torso, but appeared to be composed of intertwined roots, bark, living moss, and strands of moonlight. It was tall and slender, moving with a slow, deliberate grace that stirred no leaves, displaced no air. This, Anya knew instinctively, was the guardian of this place. The being paused a respectful distance away, its features indistinct in the dim light, yet conveying an overwhelming sense of ancient serenity. When it spoke, its voice was not loud, but carried clearly in the quiet air, sounding like the gentle rustle of dry leaves stirred by a soft wind or the creak of ancient wood settling. "Welcome, child of the outer woods," it whispered, the sound both dry and melodic. "You were drawn by the light. Few find their way here now." Anya felt no fear, only a profound sense of calm respect. She inclined her head slowly. "The light felt peaceful," she replied, her own voice sounding hushed in the stillness. "This place feels restful." The guardian inclined its head, a movement like the slow bow of a heavy branch. "It is the grove of Ethelgard, and I am its keeper. You may call me Elmsworth." He gestured with a limb that seemed both branch and arm towards the center of the grove. "You seek quietude. Perhaps you seek purpose. Come." Elmsworth turned and moved slowly towards the heart of the clearing, his mossy form blending seamlessly with the surroundings. Anya rose from the soft moss, feeling strangely lighter, and followed. In the very center of the grove stood something magnificent, something that seemed to pulse with the same gentle, silvery light that filled the air. It was a loom, large and intricately crafted. Its frame was made of a pale, smooth wood she didn't recognize, a wood that seemed to possess a faint internal luminescence. Delicate patterns like swirling constellations or flowing water were inlaid into the wood with a silvery metal that shimmered softly. Threads finer than any she had ever seen and glowing with a soft starlight radiance were stretched upon the frame, and a half-finished weaving hung there, depicting patterns that seemed both abstract and deeply familiar, like the geometry of dreams. "This," Elmsworth breathed, his voice a low murmur beside her, "is the loom of Ethelgard. It does not weave wool or flax, child. It weaves with the threads of starlight, mending the fragile tapestry of dreams." He extended a hand-like formation of twigs and moss towards the hanging threads, and Anya could feel a gentle, radiating warmth emanating from the loom, a comforting energy that seemed to vibrate softly in the air. It felt like the hum of deep peace. Anya stared, captivated. The concept was fantastical, yet standing here, in this impossible grove, it felt utterly real, deeply right. The loom looked ancient, yet perfectly preserved, humming with a quiet, latent power. The air around it smelled faintly of ozone, like the air after a gentle rain, mingled with the scent of the night-blooming jasmine she had noticed earlier. "Mending dreams," she whispered, awestruck. "Sleepers' dreams fray," Elmsworth explained, his voice like shifting leaves. "Worries, fears, they create small rents, thin places. The loom, using the light shed by distant stars gathered here in the grove, weaves patches of tranquility, reinforcing peace, soothing troubled slumber across the sleeping world. It is slow work, gentle work, necessary work." He turned his indistinct gaze towards Anya. "The loom has been quiet for too long. It senses a kindred spirit in you, a gentle hand." The invitation hung in the air, soft as moss, heavy as ancient stone. Anya felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling of quiet recognition, as if a part of her she hadn't known existed was finally seeing home. Chapter 3. Learning the Threads. The days, or perhaps cycles of twilight that passed for days in the timeless grove, settled into a peaceful rhythm for Anya. She spent much of her time simply being present, observing Elmsworth as he worked at the magnificent loom. The guardian moved with an unhurried grace, his moss and bark fingers surprisingly deft as they guided the shuttle or adjusted the tension of the glowing threads. The sounds of the loom became a soothing constant in Anya's awareness. The gentle thump as the beater pressed a new thread into place. The soft clack of the shuttle passing through the shed. The quiet whir of the heddles rising and falling. It was a lullaby of quiet creation. Elmsworth began to teach her, his instructions as gentle and patient as the falling dew. First, he showed her how to gather the raw material, starlight. In certain secluded corners of the grove, particularly where the moonlight-like luminescence seemed to pool near the roots of the ancient trees, tiny motes of light drifted slowly in the air. They looked like fine, silvery dust, catching the ambient glow. Elmsworth showed her how to cup her hands gently, allowing the motes to gather, drawn by a quiet focus she learned to cultivate within herself. The starlight felt surprisingly cool and substantial against her skin, like holding a handful of the finest, weightless silk. It tingled faintly, a pleasant low vibration of dormant energy. Next came the spinning. Elmsworth provided her with a small, beautifully smooth spindle, made of the same pale moonwood as the loom. Holding the spindle felt comforting, its surface cool and polished from centuries of use. Sitting on the soft moss, with Elmsworth working quietly nearby, Anya learned to draw out the gathered starlight motes and twist them, guided by the spindle's gentle rotation, into a single, continuous thread. It required focus, but a soft, meditative kind, her breathing naturally slowing to match the rhythm of her hands. As the thread formed, it shimmered with an internal silver-blue light, and inexplicably, the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine seemed to emanate from it, perfuming the air around her. Her fingers, at first clumsy, gradually grew more sensitive, learning the precise tension needed, feeling the subtle flow of gentle magic within the forming strand. The slight weight of the spindle felt grounding. Elmsworth never rushed her, never showed impatience. He would pause his own weaving to watch her, offering quiet words of guidance like, "Softer now, let the light guide your touch," or "Feel the rhythm, like breath." He explained that each thread held a different quality of starlight, depending on where and when it was gathered. Some were for soothing anxieties, others for encouraging peaceful memories, still others for reinforcing feelings of safety and warmth. Learning to discern these subtle differences was part of the craft, requiring quiet observation and intuition. Anya found a deep satisfaction in the simple, repetitive motions of gathering and spinning. The cool smoothness of the starlight dust, the gentle weight of the spindle, the soft whirring sound it made, the beautiful shimmering thread emerging between her fingers, it all combined into a deeply calming ritual. She would often lose track of time, completely absorbed in the task, the only sounds the gentle work of her hands, the loom's rhythmic accompaniment, and Elmsworth's occasional soft instructions. The constant silvery twilight of the grove wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. She learned to appreciate the subtle shifts in the grove's atmosphere, the way the scent of moss deepened after an unseen, silent dewfall, or how different patterns seemed to emerge in the luminous moss on the trees. As she looked closer, she felt her own inner turmoil, the restlessness that had brought her here, gradually quietening, smoothed out by the gentle rhythms of the grove and the mindful focus of her new craft. Her hands, once idle, now felt purposeful, connected to this ancient, peaceful magic. The warmth spreading from her focused effort felt pleasant, easing any lingering tension in her shoulders and neck. She was learning not just a skill, but a way of being quiet, patient, and attentive to the subtle beauty of the work. Chapter 4. Mending the First Dream. One tranquil period, as Anya sat spinning a particularly soft, silvery thread near the loom, Elmsworth paused his own work. The rhythmic thump-clack ceased, leaving a profound quiet filled only by the loom's low, resonant hum. He turned his indistinct gaze towards a space in the air beside the great machine. With a slow, deliberate gesture of his branch-like arm, he indicated a faint disturbance, visible only as a subtle shimmering, like heat haze, but cooler, tinged with a weary, pale lavender light. It quivered slightly, a small patch of dissonance in the grove's harmony. "A frayed place," Elmsworth murmured, his voice like the settling of old leaves. "A dream worn thin by worry. It requires mending, lest the sleeper's rest remain troubled." He looked towards Anya, then at the spool of silvery thread she had just completed. "Your hands have learned the feel of the starlight. Your heart has found the quiet rhythm. The thread you have spun holds the light of gentle moons. It is well suited for this." Anya felt a flutter in her chest, not of anxiety, but of quiet anticipation, a sense of gentle purpose. She looked from the shimmering tear in the air, so strange, so ethereal, to the smooth, glowing thread on her spindle. It felt cool and alive beneath her fingertips. She nodded slowly, accepting the task. Elmsworth gave a slow nod in return, a gesture of trust that warmed her. Carefully, Anya rose from the moss, carrying her spindle. She approached the loom, the great structure humming softly, as if in welcome. The lavender light of the frayed dream pulsed gently, and she could almost feel a distant echo of unease emanating from it. Elmsworth stood silently beside her, a calming, steady presence. He didn't dictate, but allowed her to find her own way, trusting the knowledge she had absorbed through observation and practice. Remembering the movements she had watched Elmsworth perform countless times, Anya carefully selected the end of her starlight thread. It seemed to cling willingly to her fingers. She approached the shimmering lavender tear, holding her breath for a moment, then gently introduced the thread to the edge of the frayed area. The loom seemed to respond instantly. A soft click echoed from its mechanism, and the existing threads nearby shifted slightly, making space. With slow, deliberate movements, Anya began to weave her silvery thread into the weakened fabric of the dream. She passed the spindle back and forth, mimicking the motion of the shuttle she had watched so often. The starlight thread integrated seamlessly, its gentle silver blue light mingling with the pale lavender, beginning to reinforce the thin patch. The loom assisted, its internal mechanisms clicking and whirring softly, guiding the tension, ensuring the weave was even and strong yet soft. Anya focused completely on the task, her awareness narrowing to the point where her thread met the dream fabric. The intricate pattern of the mend seemed to emerge naturally, guided by the thread itself and the loom's ancient wisdom. She felt the gentle pull and release of the threads, a soft rhythmic tugging in her hands. The air filled with the clean, cool scent of ozone and starlight, more potent now as the magic actively worked. She imagined the anonymous sleeper somewhere far away, feeling a subtle shift as their troubled dream began to smooth out, the edges of anxiety softening into peace. The thought brought a deep sense of quiet joy. She continued weaving, her movements becoming more fluid, more confident. The shimmering lavender light seemed to calm, its weary, pulsing, slowing, becoming steadier, infused now with the gentle silver of her thread. The tear grew smaller, the fabric thickening, becoming whole again. The process felt less like repair and more like gentle healing, a soothing balm applied to a hidden hurt. The warmth in her own chest spread, a comforting heat mirroring the restorative energy flowing through her hands. Finally, the mend was complete. The frayed edges were gone, replaced by a patch of beautifully woven silver and lavender light, seamlessly integrated into the surrounding dream stuff. The shimmering dissonance had vanished, replaced by a soft, harmonious glow. Anya carefully secured the end of her thread, and the loom gave a final, soft clack of completion. She stepped back, letting out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding, feeling a profound sense of peaceful accomplishment. Elmsworth placed a mossy hand gently on her shoulder. "Well woven, Anya," he whispered, his voice filled with quiet approval. "The dream rests easy now, and so may you." Chapter 5. Weaver of Tranquility. Time flowed differently in the whispering grove, measured not by sun or moon, but by the completion of tasks, the gathering of starlight, the slow rhythm of the loom. Anya no longer felt like a visitor. The grove had become her home, its perpetual twilight a comforting constant, its deep quietude a balm to her spirit. She now worked alongside Elmsworth, not as an apprentice, but as a fellow tender of the loom of Ethelgard. Her days settled into a gentle, unhurried routine. She would wake, though, waking felt like merely shifting from one state of peaceful awareness to another on her soft bed of moss and ferns, the air cool and fragrant with damp earth and the ever-present hint of night-blooming jasmine. Her first task was often to wander the quieter corners of the grove, hands cupped, gathering the drifting motes of starlight, feeling their cool silkiness against her skin, a familiar and grounding sensation. The gentle focus required was meditative, starting her cycle in mindful peace. Then she would take her place at the loom. Sometimes Elmsworth was already there, his ancient form bent slightly over the glowing threads, the soft thump-clack of his work a welcoming sound. Other times she would begin alone, the great loom humming its low, resonant song in response to her touch, selecting a spool of starlight thread, perhaps one shimmering with the soft gold of hopeful dawn, or the deep indigo of peaceful night. She would find the next frayed dream awaiting repair, a faint shimmering disturbance in the air nearby. The process of weaving had become second nature, her hands moving with a quiet confidence and grace. She still felt a sense of wonder each time her thread merged with the dream fabric, watching as the dissonance smoothed away, replaced by the gentle, harmonious light of the mend. The feeling of connection to the unknown sleepers, offering them comfort and peace through her quiet work, brought a profound and lasting contentment, a sense of purpose she had never known before. It was a quiet contribution, unseen by the waking world, yet deeply meaningful. She learned to read the needs of the dreams by their subtle colors and vibrations. A pale, trembling green might need the reassurance of steadfast earth tones, while a frantic, flickering orange could be calmed by the slow, deep blue of a tranquil sea. Elmsworth shared his ancient knowledge freely, his voice like rustling leaves explaining the subtle properties of starlight gathered under different celestial alignments, or the best weaving patterns to soothe specific kinds of dream anxieties. Their companionship was quiet, built on shared purpose and mutual respect, communicated often through simple gestures or comfortable silence. Sometimes, when the loom was quiet, Anya would simply sit on the moss, leaning against the smooth, cool trunk of an ancient tree and watch the interplay of light and shadow in the grove. She'd observe the slow, deliberate movements of tiny, phosphorescent insects crawling on the bark, or trace the intricate veins on a fallen leaf. She listened to the subtle symphony of the grove, the sigh of the wind in the high, unseen canopy, the distant murmur of water, the soft rustle of Elmsworth's movements, and always the gentle underlying hum of the loom, a constant reminder of the grove's peaceful heart. The deep, springy moss beneath her felt like a permanent embrace, grounding her, absorbing any lingering tension. The cool, fragrant air seemed to cleanse her thoughts, leaving only quiet clarity. The repetitive, gentle rhythm of the weaving, the gathering, the spinning, it all wove itself into the fabric of her being, smoothing out her own inner phrase. She felt her body relax more deeply with each passing cycle, her shoulders perpetually eased, her breath slow and even, often unconsciously synchronizing with the loom's gentle cadence. Anya had found her place, not in the bustling world outside, but here, in the heart of stillness, a weaver of tranquility, content in the quiet magic of mending dreams.